Whenever you're using reds in your watercolor paintings, do you feel like sometimes they're a little bit flat, boring, and kind of dull? Well, today I'm going to show you how by just using a simple yellow underwash, your reds are going to remain gloriously vibrant, even while using some blue and some violet to create depth of color, some shading, and darker values. What I'd like to go over with you first before we jump into anything is just telling you the colors that I'm using. So if you have them, you can use the same ones or at least something similar. So for my yellow, my favorite is Nickel Azo Yellow. This one is by M. Graham. For my quinacridone rose, I also have M. Graham. For the quinacridone violet, I have Daniel Smith, and I have M. Graham Phthalo Blue red or phthalo blue red shade. My brushes are the Rosemary & Co. Pure Sable Series 99 brushes. All right, so let's jump on in here and get started. Before I start adding color to my paper, I want to erase some of these lines here from some of my graphite. I'm just using my kneaded eraser. I don't want to take the chance on any of this pencil showing up in my painting. So typically I will take my kneaded eraser, or if it's not really taking the graphite up like I want it to, then I have a Staedtler Mars plastic eraser, which is very gentle on your paper as long as you don't rub too hard. So I'm just going to use that because I think that I had drawn my lines on just a little too strong. So I'm going to take my size 5 Rosemary & Co. brush first, just with plain old water. No pigment, nothing. My reason for doing this, couple of things, is I want to have a nice base to start putting my paint into. I'm also going to redistribute and move around the sizing that's on the surface of this paper, which will allow my pigment to actually sink in to the pigment, or to the fibers of the paper along with that water. So it really accomplishes a few things all at once. So I've got a good, nice wash of water on there. Let me tilt this so you can see how wet that is. Even wet enough that it's starting to kind of pool up right down here a little bit. You can see how that water is kind of puddling. So I'm going to let this sit for just a minute or so until the shine on the paper is no longer super high gloss, but it's more of a satin gloss. Now, depending on where you live, what your climate is like, and what kind of paper you're using, that will determine how long you have to wait until it gets to the right point to start adding your pigment. So I'm using Fabriano Artistico paper today, 300-pound cold press. And it's also cool weather here where I am, and it's been raining. So it's probably going to take my paper 60 seconds, maybe 90 seconds to get where I want it to be. You will just have to judge it by appearance. And once my paper gets to the sheen that I want it to be, I will show you that so that you can judge where yours needs to be. I'll be right back. Now let's take a look. See how it's still shiny, but it's more of a satin shine rather than a high glossy shine. I no longer have water puddling up when I tilt my paper, so that is the right point for me to grab some of my paint and start putting it on. Now I'm going to get a pretty saturated amount in my brush. The reason for this is because I'm going to start out down here at the bottom where the darkest section of this ribbon is, and then work the yellow up the ribbon and allow it to get lighter as it goes toward the top. The reason for this is because this is where the darkest part of the ribbon is, and up in here it's lighter because there is some light shining onto this section of the ribbon and is causing some reflection. So I don't need my yellow to be as heavily saturated up here as I do down at the bottom. So once I get this all painted in, try to keep it nice and neat around the edges, then I will use my hair dryer get this dry, and we will come back and start in with the quinacridone rose. All right, so the yellow is nice and dry now. I'm going to do the same thing again with the water, and that I'm going to just brush on some water, and this will give me a nice surface for my paint to have somewhere to flow. So get that on there. Now I'm not going to sit and let it soak in like I did before. Reason being is it's really not necessary, and the first coat of paint that I put on there, the yellow, has already sunk into the paper, and now the water will dry more quickly and sink into the paper more quickly, so we don't have to let it sit and wait. So I'm coming over here on my palette and I'm getting my Quin Rose, and I've got a pretty good amount in my brush. And again, like I did with the yellow, I'm gonna start out at the bottom with this rose. See how these brushes have such a nice point that I can get right down into that little corner and not have to worry about my point of my brush not being pointy enough. All right, so I'm going to drag this color right on up, and as I start to feel like I'm running out of paint, then I'll just go back over to my palette and pick up a little more. And this is going to be my very first wash of quinacridone rose. Then I will let this one dry, and I will come back with some more and add it later. But now what I'm going to do before I let it dry, see how on my palette over here I'm grabbing some thicker paint, and then I'm just going to lightly touch. Let me drag my paper towel over here so you can see. I'm just going to lightly touch my paper towel just to take out some of the excess water. Then I'll drop some of that pigment right down here at the bottom. Again, I am creating my roadmap for myself to just have a reminder that this is the area of the ribbon that is dark, and I'm working up, but see how I'm working my brush up this direction, but as I place the paint, I'm pushing it down in the direction that it's darker. So as you can see here, we already have the look of a highlight. I'm going to add some of my rose up here, and if you'll look at my palette, I'm taking just the little tippy toe of my brush, picking up a little bit of that paint on the tippy toe and dropping that in right up here. I'm going to rinse my brush, get all that water and paint out, and then just use that nice little point on my brush to do some blending right here. Okay, again, you'll want to make sure that your edges are nice and straight. All right, so we will let this dry again, then we'll come back, and if you're new to watercolor, this will dry lighter than what it is right now. When watercolor is wet, it is darker than it's going to be when it's dry. I would say 15%, 30% difference in color once it gets dry. So hang on just a minute. Once this is dry, we'll come back and add more. So right now my ribbon looks a little on the orange side, and that's okay. We will fix that. So this time I am going to just pick up my quinacridone rose without wetting the ribbon or the area of the paper where the ribbon is first. I'm just going to start down here, just put this rose in, being careful down in those corners and around the edges. Work this color up, and as I go up, as I've been doing, I'm just letting that paper soak up the paint and take it out of my brush. Now, I did not put the lines on my paper where the highlights are. I'm just going to eyeball that. So I've rinsed my brush, and now I've just got a little bit of water on there, and I'm blending this out. I'm going to pick up some more of the quinacridone rose and drop that right down in here, because I do want to make sure that I create the realistic effect of this highlight that's in the ribbon, as well as the area of the ribbon that is more in shadow or doesn't have the highlight on there. So I rinsed my brush, and just like I did before, I'm just using the tip of the brush to blend that color out. I'm adding some more of the rose right up under here. I'm looking at my image, my printed image that I have for myself, to see where that color is dark right up in there. And it's not as dark at the top as it is down here at the bottom, at least not in my photo, but I'm going to add a little more color in there, make it a little more saturated than what it is in the image, just so that highlight will really show up for me. Okay, once again, I'm going to get this dry. Then when we come back, we'll see if we need more rose or if I can start adding the quinacridone violet, which I think that's where we're going to end up. All right, it is looking mighty fine now. And I'm liking the shades that I have going on here. I'm liking the reflection. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to clean up a little spot on my palette right here. And I'm going to take some of the magenta, or not magenta, sorry about that, violet, and mix some rose in with that. Get this gorgeous color here. And I'm trying to decide, do I want to put water down or do I not? I think I'm just going to go straight in with the paint and a nice wet brush and add this mixture down here. Now, there's no real scientific way to do this. I just mixed a larger portion of the magenta than I had of the rose. Then I'll come over here and get some of the rose and blend that together on top of that magenta. Why do I keep saying magenta? It's violet. Sorry about that. All right, then I'm going to blend that out. So we have even more of a defined shadow area. And as I see fit, I can just come right over here and grab more of that rose and violet mixture. And then as you can see right here, I'm picking up some of the blue. I'm going to grab some of that mixture, and I'm creating kind of a red violet color. I'm just really darkening that up a little bit. And I'm going to take some of this and drop that in right down here. Now what this is creating for me by adding some of that phthalo blue is kind of almost a burgundy when I mix that in here. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to take pretty much all the water out. And just like you've seen me do before, I'm going to use just the fine point on this brush to kind of blend that in. So do you see this great gradient that we have here? We're going from this light yellowy orange color, which is the reflection, all the way down through this kind of orangey red into a red, and then down into that dark area. So what I think I want to do up here is I'm just going to take my brush with just some water, and I'm going to run over this area and let these two mix together, just because I want to, sorry about that. I was making sure that I was on the screen properly and took my eye off the ball here and went outside my line. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix that. But I want to bring some of this color up into here and blend that a little bit better, just so there's a smoother transition between the yellow area and where it goes down. So this little spot right here, I will clean that up after it's dry. It's real easy to do, and I'll show you how. All right, so let's zoom in here a little bit closer so you can see exactly how I'm going to fix this little mistake that I made. This is also a Rosemary & Co. and it's an eradicator. And I'm using this first because it is a softer bristle brush. I know that it's probably not going to disturb the fibers of my paper. So typically when I'm doing any lifting or scrubbing, depending on the area of the painting, the situation, how light I need it, if it's a mistake that I'm cleaning up, or if I'm going back to solid white paper or just what have you, that will determine what kind of scrubber brush I'm going to use. In this case, I'm just using the softer one. Okay, let's zoom back out a little bit. Okay, so this is what we have, is this nice gradient from the highlight all the way down through here where it gets darker. Now I could make it darker in this area if I wanted to. I like it where it is. The only thing that I feel like I would like to do is move down to a smaller brush. This is my size 2. I'm going to take just clear water and rub that right in this area, then take a paper towel and dab that up. And then what I'm going to do next is just take the same brush, just clear water, and run it right over just kind of a strip of an area more or less, because there is more of a highlight right in this area. So I want to make sure that that shows up. And I'm liking how that is looking. Now, I'm going to go ahead and grab that eradicator brush again. I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can get in here at an easier angle for my wrist. I'm going to use this eradicator and I'm gently touching the surface of the paper. That will lift that highlight out even more. But just remember, when you're using any kind of a brush to do any scrubbing with, go slow. Don't be in a rush because you don't want to damage your paper. Okay, and so one other thing I want to show you is I've got outside the line a little bit right there. So I'm going to clean that up. See how easy it is to clean up some mistakes? So you got a little bonus in here, just not only learning how to use yellow as an underwash, but also learning how to fix some mistakes. So here is how you use yellow as an underwash to get your reds to be glowing and beautiful, but then still have some dark areas where you need them, and then how to do some lifting to create that highlight. So I'm not going to continue with the rest of the ribbon because all of it is the same as what we did here. And I will have the photo of this little piece of ribbon available for you so that you will have it as a reference. I'm going to have a line drawing for you too, so you can transfer that to your paper. But I hope that this was something that was educational, beneficial for you, that you learned something, and that it is something that you will be able to use in your future painting. So hope you have a good time with it. If you have any comments, just make sure to reach out to me and let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.